In this video we're going to multiply decimals, so here's the examples on page 1, this is page 2, page 3, page 4, and then we have pages 5 and 6 here. So page 5 and 6. Okay. So we're going to start with page 1 here, and just imagine that you were multiplying 3 times 0.02 or 3 times 2 cents. Okay. Now, to multiply decimals, the first thing we do is we write the kind of the longer number on the top. You don't have to, but it just kind of makes it a little bit neater to put the longer, the number with more digits on the top. And you don't have to line up the decimal point. I mean, I know the decimal point for a 3 is right here, but when you're multiplying, you don't have to line up the decimal points. So that's how we do it. And then we multiply it through. And then we see what we get. Well, let's see. Okay, 3 times 2 is 6. And if you want, you can go 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 0 is 0. Now, what is the answer? Is the answer 6? Here? Could the answer be 6? 3 times 2 cents. Well, you see, 6, the number 6 is kind of like $6, isn't it? Right? So we want to represent cents, so I mean we know the answer has to be 6 cents, right? I mean the answer has to be 0.06, doesn't it? Right? And the trick with multiplying by decimals is you count how many decimals are in all of the numbers that have been multiplied. 1, 2, how many decimal places are in the numbers being multiplied, and there's 2, and so then you just go 1, 2, you move the decimal point from here over here 2 spaces, and then you put it here, and then we have 0.06. okay, and that of course lines up with what it should be, right? $1.28 times 4, let's see, well 4 times $1 is $4, right? So you would think this is going to be some number more than $4, or 4 point something, or in fact actually isn't it going to be a little bit more than $5? It's going to be around $5, isn't it? Or 5 point something, right? 5 point something is the answer, right? So when we're going to line it up and make sure our answer makes sense. So we got $1.28, so we're buying 4 pens, and each pen costs $1.28, right? 4 pens. Okay, so you just multiply it the same way. Put the longer string of numbers on top and the small and the shorter one on bottom. It just makes it neater. And then you go, okay, 4 times 8, 32, carry the 3. 4 times 2 is 8, and 3 is 11, right? I carry the 1, and 4 times 1 is 4, and 1 is 5. So is the answer going to be $512? Now this is $1.28. You're buying 4 pens for $1.28 each. What would you expect to pay, right? Is it going to be that, or is it going to be, how about $51.02 or $51.20? Does that make sense? Or how about, we'll put the decimal point over here. How about 0.512, which is approximately 0.5 is going to be 51 cents. Right, what is the cost going to be? Well, like we said, it has to be $5.12, doesn't it? So there's 2. You basically see, look, there's 2 decimal places in the problem up here. 1, 2, and so your answer has to have 2 decimal places as well. 1, 2, like that. Okay. So the answer is 5.12, right? Or, $5.12. Okay. So please press pause if you like and see if you can do this one. 2 times 4.892. Okay, now just before we begin, 4.892, round this to the nearest whole number. What is that? To the nearest whole number. So we'll round the 8 up, so this is going to be approximately 5, isn't it? That's pretty much 2. It's very close to 2 times 5, which is of course 10, right? So the answer should be something close to 10, right? So we'll write it out, and the big long string of numbers is the 4.892. And it's been multiplied by 2. And so we put the shorter number on the bottom, the longer number on the top. 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 9, 18, carry the 1, 2 times 8, 16, 1 is 17, carry the 1, 2 times 4 is 8, and 1 is 9. And there were 3 decimal places, 1, 2, 3 in the problem, and so there's going to be 3, 1, 2, 3 in the answer. So 9.784 is the answer there, and that is close to 10, isn't it? Right? So just, you know, it's good to understand why and to see that this really does work, right? Otherwise, what's the point, right? No point just remembering stuff. If we get some sort of understanding, that will stay in your brain, because understanding something stays in your long-term memory. All right. So we got 3/10 multiplied by 5/10. We're going to do two things. We're going to calculate as fractions and then as decimals. What do I mean by that? I'll show you. First, I just want you to multiply these as fractions. And you'll have these in your homework too, and please do it in the same way. 3 times 5 is 15. 10 times 10 is 100. Oh, you might say we could have cross-cancelled 5 and 10, or 5 and 10, but I'm not going to. Because look, what I want to do is I just want to write this as a decimal. That's 0. What? See, if I just leave it as 100 on the bottom, then I can get it as a decimal. And I have, if you remember your cheat sheet with decimals, you've got, remember you got tens, ones, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and so on, right? So so let's see, we've got ones, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Let's remember those at least. So these are hundredths. I think it's over 100, so it's 15 hundredths. So we've got tenths, hundredths, and we write 5 and then 1. So the answer, you agree, is definitely 0.15. Or in other words, it's 15 cents. 15 cents is 15 hundredths of a dollar, right? Okay. So this is, we have calculated as a fraction. That's the first thing. That's done. Now we're going to calculate it as a decimal. Now write 3/10 as a decimal. 3/10 is 0. What? 0.3? Yep. 5/10 as a decimal. What's 5/10 as a decimal? 0. Now tenths, of course, is just the first place. You got tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So 0.5, right? We're just going to multiply those guys, right? And 5 times 3 is 15. Put down to 5, carry the 1. 5 times 0 is 0, and 1 is 1. And if I want to, and you don't have, you'll see, if you want to, you can take the 0 and go and start multiplying by that. Just imagine you're doing long multiplication. So actually, first of all, you would put a placeholder 0 there. Now 0 times 3 is 0, 0 times 0 is 0, and then you add, don't you? Add them. And of course, and we get, so we got to add these guys. So we get 5, 1, 0. And what we do now is we see, well, there are 1, 2 decimal places in the problem. So there's going to be 2 in the answer, right? And so in your answer you go 1, 2. And you put a decimal point there, and there you go. There's your answer, 0.15, right? Well, let's just do this one more time, because there's an easier way. I didn't have to multiply by this 0 at all, did I? I could have just went 5 times 3 is 15, carry the 1, 5 times 0 is 0 and 1. And just stop there, because look, I know that 0 times that is 0, 0 times that is 0. I'm just going to have a bunch of zeros, so I don't even need to do it. Now if I just count the decimal places, 1, 2, and then in the answer, 1, 2, the decimal point goes there, right? So 0.15. So that's a neater way of doing it. Like if you're going to be multiplying by zeros, you can just skip it basically. So please press pause and try this one yourself. 2/10 multiplied by 2/10. I want you first to calculate it as a fraction. You know, and then as a decimal. And remember last time, okay, we got 0.15 in both cases, and you know they should be the same, right? So first of all, calculate as a fraction, and then as a decimal. So as a fraction, you've got, write down the answer. 2 times 2, 4 over 10 times 10, 100. Yep. Now what's that as a decimal? 0. Point what? 4 hundredths. That's 4 hundredths. Remember your cheat sheet. Is decimal point, ones, decimal point, then tenths, hundredths, thousandths, right? Tenths, hundredths, 4 hundredths. So the 4 goes there, and then you kind of put a placeholder 0. So the answer is definitely 0.04 as a decimal, right? Now we're going to calculate this as a decimal. We're going to go 0.2 multiplied by 2 tenths is 0.2, isn't it? 2 over 2 tenths is 0.2. We're going to multiply. And we can do this. 2 times 2 is 4. And 2 times 0 is 0. We don't even have to do that. And I can take this 0, multiply by everything if I like. Put in a placeholder 0. 0 times 2 is 0. 0 times 0 is 0. I can add. I'm just going to be adding a bunch of zeros. I'm going to get 4 there anyway. And a bunch of zeros. So why would I bother? You don't have to. You can if you want. It doesn't matter. But there are 1, 2 places, decimal places in the problem. So there's going to be 2 in the answer. See, 1, 2. So 1, 2. And then you stop right there, and the answer is 0.04. Okay? And just really quickly, if you wanted to, just go 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 0 is 0, and just stop there because you know this is going to give you zeros anyway. You could just go 1, 2 places in the problem, 1, 2 places in the answer, put the decimal point here, 0.04. So this way or this way are correct. I guess you can do whatever you like. I kind of think this way is a little bit less simpler. Anyway, so we got the same answer, 0.04. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is prove to you that this method does work, and hopefully you'll get an understanding for it, and not just kind of memorize it. Hopefully you remember it too, but I mean the understanding is really helpful for the brain, you know. Okay, so if we had 4 hundredths times 2 hundredths, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to calculate as fractions and then as decimals. I'm going to put those instructions up there. So 2 steps. So the first thing I'd like to do is calculate these as fractions. So multiply the tops, then multiply the bottoms. So what do you get? And don't cross cancel because we want a factor of 10 on the bottom. Okay? Because on the bottom 100 times 100 is... What is 100 times 100? Well, it's how many zeros? 1, 2, 3, 4 is going to be 1, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. 10,000, right? So I want it as, 10 thousandths, and on the top 4 times 2 is 8. So I'm not going to cross cancel it all. Just want to write like that because I then want to change it into a decimal. 8 10 thousandths is 0. What? Okay, and I'd really like you to practice this. We've got tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10 thousandths. Tenths, say it. Hundredths, say it. Thousandths, 10 thousandths. Right? Remember that? Tenths, hundredths, thousands, and 10 thousandths. So it's 8 10 thousandths. So we put 8 here, don't we? And now you have 3 spaces for 0. So just fill that up with zeros, and then that's your answer. Right? Now, if I multiply this, so I've calculated this as a fraction. Now I'm going to calculate this with decimals. What is 4 hundredths as a decimal? 0. What? It's like 4 cents, right? 4 hundredths of a dollar is 4 cents. So tenths, hundredths. So the 4 goes over here and you plug a 0 here, right? Tenths, hundredths, right? What is 2 over 100 as a decimal? It's 0. Tenths, hundredths, right? 0, 2. Then we multiply them. Okay. So 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 0 is 0. And if you want, you can go, okay, put a placeholder 0. Multiply by this 0. 0 times 4 is 0. 0 times 0 is 0. 0 times 0 is 0. Then you can deal with this guy if you want to. I don't know why you'd want to do that. But you could need to put 2 placeholder zeros. 0 times 4 is 0. 0 times 0 is 0. 0 times 0 is another 0 over here. Sorry. And then you add them all up together and you get 8, 0, 0, 0, 0, right? And then where am I going to put the decimal point? Well, let's see. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal places in the problem. See that? 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's going to be 4 in the answer. 1, 2, 3, 4. The decimal point goes here. So the answer is 0. Oops, my mistake. 0.0008. Okay. Now, what is it? Okay, so and that matches up with this, doesn't it? 0.0008, right? Now, I just want you to do this. If you've done it once this way, just please do it another way so you learn both ways. Because the shorter way is quicker. 2 times 4 is 8. Okay? 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 0 is 0. And so on. And then once you start getting into this, 0 times that is 0. You're going to get a bunch of zeros. You already know that. Once you multiply by this guy, this is going to give you a bunch of zeros. And you already know that too. So you don't even have to bother. And then you can just go, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal places in the problem. So there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 decimal places in the answer. Put the decimal point there. Okay, and you've got to put in another placeholder 0, right? And also always put a 0 in front of the decimal point. So 0.0008, and that's the answer. That was a quick way to do it, right? 0.0008. Alright. Okay, so please press pause and do this one by yourself. 13 hundredths times 3 tenths. Multiply these out and get a fraction. First step. So calculate this as a fraction, then write it as a decimal, and then calculate the whole thing as using decimals. So I should have said calculate using fractions, then using decimals, right? Okay, so the bottom, 100 times 10. If you had 10 $100 bills, what would you have? 1,000. So like I said, you know, please, most important thing is press pause, try and do it, and then check the video. Or race me is the best thing to do, right? 13 times 3, well, 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 1 is 3, that's just 39. So we've got 39 thousandths, which is 0. What? Don't use your cheat sheet if you need it. Okay. 0. Tenths, hundredths, what's next? Thousandths. So these are thousandths. How many? 39. 9 goes there. 3 goes there. And of course we have nothing here, so we put a 0, right? For a placeholder. So this is definitely 39 thousandths, right? Now we're going to calculate it using decimals. What's 13 hundredths as a decimal? It's 0. What? Hundredths. It's like cents. 0. is tenths, hundredths. So 13, right? What's 3 tenths as a decimal? 0. What? Remember, the decimal points do not have to be underneath each other when you're multiplying. That's only with adding. With multiplying, they can be anywhere. Okay, 3 tenths as a decimal. 0.3, right? Tenths. Ones tenths, right? So we just go ahead and multiply that. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 0 is 0. And you don't have to multiply this 0 out because it's going to give you zeros down here anyway. We already know that. So you can just skip that part, and then we just count the decimal places in the problem. 1, 2. So sorry, 1, 2, 3, isn't it? 1, 2, 3. So you start here. 1, 2, 3, and then you put your decimal point here. 0.039 or 0.039, and is that the same as this? Should be. Okay, so you get a chance to check your answer and understand why you're doing the correct thing. That's the whole idea. Okay, page 4. We're gonna, same thing again, we're gonna calculate as fractions and then as decimals. Okay, so 8 times 8 tenths. If I was to calculate this as fractions, write 8 as a fraction. 8 as a fraction is 8 over 1. Yep. And then it's been multiplied by 8 over 10. And what does that give? 8 times 8? 64. 1 times 10? 10. How do you write 64 tenths as a decimal? Well, you could say it is 10 into 64 goes 6 times remainder 4. It is 6 and 4 tenths. So that is 6 point what? Is that 6.4? Yep. Okay. So we've calculated it using fractions. Now we're going to calculate it using decimals. So 8 tenths as a decimal is 0.8, isn't it? And we're being multiplied by 8. So 8 times 0.8, what does that give you? 8 times 8, 64, carry the 6. 8 times 0 is 0 and 6. How many decimal points in the question? There was just one, wasn't there? So we just put 1 in the answer, and of course we get 6.4. Okay, so that works out, right? How about this question here? 3 1/10 times 9 hundredths. We're going to calculate it as fractions first of all. Do you remember how to multiply mixed numbers? First of all, you've got to change them into improper fractions. 10 times 3 is 30. 30 plus 1 is 31. So it's 31 over 10 multiplied by 9 over 100. Okay at that? So multiply the tops then the bottoms. Don't cross cancel anything, not that you're able to in this case, but go ahead and fill out what you get. 10 times 100 is what? 31 times 9 is what? Okay, if you had $100, 10 times that would be 1,000, right? 31 times 9, 31, 9, multiply that, 9 ones is 9, 9 threes is 27, so 279. Is that correct? Yep. Thousandths, write that as a decimal, 0 point what? Now say it, say this. Tenths, what comes after tenths? Hundredths, right? What comes after hundredths? Thousandths. Like tens, hundreds, thousands, right? How many of them? 279. So the 9 goes there, 7 goes there, 2 goes there, right? So the answer is 0.279. Now we're going to calculate this using decimals. So how do you write 3 1/10 as a decimal? It's 3.1, isn't it? And how about 9 hundredths as a decimal? .09, right? In fact, of course, usually we'll be you'll go, okay, 0.09, and then kind of decide, how do I want to line this up? Okay. And, I would probably do the 3.1 at the top and do the 0.09 at the bottom, because then you only have one line in the answer basically. So there's more digits other than 0 in 3.1, so that's why I put him up there. And the decimal points do not have to line up. Remember that? They don't have to line up. It doesn't matter, but it's simpler just to, when you're multiplying, remember you don't have to line up the decimals. Just line up the digits, right? So 9 times 1 is 9. 9 times 3, 27. Then 7 carry the 2. Or 2 goes there. And then you can start multiplying by zeros if you like. 0 times that is 0. 0 times that is 0. And 0 times, and then you can do this 0. And get a whole bunch more zeros if you want. You don't have to. And you can just, all you need to do is count the decimal places in the question. 1, 2, 3. There's 1, 2, 3 decimal places in the question, so there's going to be 3 in the answer. I always start here, okay? So this is going to like 279, and the decimal point is here, but we've got to move it over 1, 2, 3 places, all the way to here. So we have 0.279. I always stick the 0 in front of it like that. So 0.279, and that is correct because that is the answer, isn't it? 0.279. So what I'd really like you to do is to please press pause and really and truly do this one by yourself. Okay, because you're going to have done the homework, and you really want you to make your mistakes while you're, if you're going to make mistakes, try and make them during the videos, because then you can catch your problems instead of just kind of staring at the screen and not learning anything. So it's when you're trying it, when you're making mistakes and trying to do it yourself, that's how you learn, okay? And then hopefully the homework will go a lot easier because you've already figured things out using the videos. So 2 5/10 times 400. So please press pause, and you're going to first of all calculate these as fractions. So you have to turn everything into a fraction and multiply them, right? You got it? So you're pressing pause, and okay, now I'm going to try it. So I'm going to do it now, okay? So just so you can check your answer. So turning this into a fraction, I could put this in lowest terms. I'm not going to. I'm just going to go 10 times 2 is 20, and then 20 plus 5, I've got 25 tenths. I could put it in lowest terms, but I'm not going to here because I want to have a factor of 10 on the bottom. So I've got 25 over 10 times, and then we've got 4 over 100, right? And if I multiply the bottoms, you see 10 times 100 is 1000. So I want a factor of 10 on the bottom, 100, 1000, 10, 100,000, whatever, right? On the top, 25 times 4 is 100. So as a decimal, this is 0. What? 100 thousandths, right? So we've got tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So 0, 0, 1, 100 thousandths. And of course that can simply be written 0.1. Can't it? 0.1? Yep. Okay, so the answer should be 0.1. We're going to now write these things as decimals and multiply them. So 2 5/10 as a decimal is 2 point what? 5/10. 2.5, right? And that's been multiplied by what's 400ths as a decimal? (0.10 hundredths). 4 over here, 0.04, right? Okay, so I guess once again with this one I would like to do the 2.5 in the top and then 0.04, because then I just have one line to do in the answer, not 2 lines. So if there's, anyway, there's more significant digits, what they're called. This guy has 2 significant digits, 2 digits that are not 0, and this one has 1. Okay. So anyway, if I multiply them, I go 4 times 5 is 20, carry the 2. 4 times 8 is 4 times 2 is 8, and 2 is 10. And then if I want, I can multiply this 0 through and get zeros. Then I can multiply this 0 through and get zeros down here, but I'm not going to bother because I don't need to. And I can count the significant digits in the question, or count the decimal places in the question. So 1, 2, 3, and count them in the answer then. 1, 2, 3, right? And so you put a decimal point here, and we have 0.100, which is what we had up here. And that, of course, can simply be written 0.1. Same thing, right? So the answer is 0.1 in both cases. Okay. So we'll do some more just general practice with multiplying decimals now. We're just going to look at a half of $4.62, for example. Can you write down what that would be? What would a half of $4.62 be? You know, and once again, if I calculated this as using fractions, of means multiply, doesn't it? And 4.62 over 1, you could write that like that if you want. And then you could go 2 into 2 goes once, 2 into that goes twice, 2 into this goes 3 times, 2 into that goes once, so 231. But you probably would have figured that, you might be able to figure that in your head. It's got to be $2 something anyway, isn't it? $2.31. That makes sense, right? Okay, so also I'd like you to remember that 0.5 is how many tenths? 0.5 is 5 tenths. Now put that fraction in lowest terms, what do you get? 5 into 5 goes once, 5 into 10 goes twice. That's a half, right? So my point is that 1/2 is equal to 0.5, isn't it? So if I'm getting a half of $4.62, another way of looking at that is, an of means multiply, I'm going 0.5, see a half is 0.5, of means multiply by 462, okay? So I'm going 0.5 times that, and so I'm going to multiply those decimals out just to see if I end up with 231, okay? So 462 times 0.5. Remember, you don't have to line up the decimal points. And usually, because there's a whole bunch of digits in 462, I like to put that guy on the top and the other one on the bottom. So, by all means, press pause, multiply this out, see if you get the same answer. Please press pause and try it yourself. Okay, I'm going to do it now. 5 times 2 is 10, carry the 1. 5 times 6 is 30 and 1. 31, carry the 3. 5 times 4 is 20 and 3, 23. Count the decimal, and I could multiply by this 0 if I like and get a whole bunch of zeros down here. I'm not going to bother. Count the decimal places in the question. 1, 2, 3. See? 1, 2, 3. Count them in the answer. Start here. 1, 2, 3. So 2.31, which is correct. 2.31, right? So 2.31. Yep. Alrighty.